Good evening and good morning to those of you who are calling in from Europe or Middle East. Welcome to Venture's webinar. Venture's Group is a City Tech business builder and investor. My name is Johan Redegard, and I'm one of the co-founders. Today, we are very pleased to have two of our friends from Fidelity International to join us to talk about investing in the age of AI. So we have Stuart and Taosha Wang. So Stuart, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Johan, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to you today on investing in the age of AI. It's a very topical subject. It seems that you can't turn the pages of the FTA without coming up on a headline that says the benefits or perhaps even the fears over AI. So, you know, certainly when we talk to our investors, it's among the top three topics that come up in when we talk about investment themes. And I think we can be left in no doubt that it is now established firmly as a structural investment theme, with it set to transform economies and industries, boost growth, improve competitiveness, streamline processes. But along with that is obviously a lot of complexity. And as I alluded to before, a few risks along the way, not to mention trying to keep up with the pace of AI, concerns over the safety, data security, an evolving regulatory landscape, ESG concerns over energy usage, and a few more. So to navigate this complex environment, I'm delighted to be joined by Taosha Wang, who will give us some insights into investing in AI. She's an expert within the multi-asset team on thematic investing, and she's a portfolio manager, as you can see on the screen. She's been with Fidelity for 3 years, and before that, she held investment roles at PIMCO and UBS. Hi, Taosha, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for the introduction, Stuart. Pleasure to be here today to talk about this topic on vogue, which is investing in the age of AI. Shall we get started?
Yeah, so we're going to follow a bit of a Q&A format. The questions are coming in pretty thick and fast. So we'll sort of begin with really where I started, I suppose. You know, it's touted as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, AI. And there's certainly a lot of hype along with the genuine opportunity. Where do you sit on that debate, Taosha? How do we assess the opportunity with AI?
Well, I'm certainly in the camp that's in the advocate camp for AI. And frankly, I've been asked that question so often: generative AI, is this once in a lifetime opportunity, once in a generation opportunity? Now, the concept of AI has existed for decades, and the earliest form emerged in the 1950s. But it's really the more recent development in generative AI that has really sort of reignited the hype around, you know, what AI can do, how do we incorporate it into our work and life. I think there's three main features that set generative AI, the latest development, apart from, you know, its precedents. Number one is the ease of use. Many of us who have experienced ChatGPT can easily attest to that. Second is the rapid adoption, and third is the multi-purpose or general purpose nature of this tool. The bars in the middle give you a sense of how rapid, in fact, unprecedentedly rapid, the adoption is. The adoption has been with ChatGPT. As you can see here, the bars here shows how long it took for key technologies to reach 100 million users. For the telephone, it took 75 years. For ChatGPT, it took 2 months, and it's still, you know, the user base is still growing at a really fast pace. On the right-hand side, you see the bubbles there. Those are just some examples of what generative AI can do for you. And frankly, it's everything: search, translation, summary, image generation, you name it. So when you combine these three important characteristics together, it really sort of gives a lot of new opportunity in terms of how we use it, and obviously, bears interesting consequence from an investment perspective as well.
Fantastic. You just look down that list of inventions: telephone, TV, the smartphone, all have had a very profound impact on economies. And I think, you know, I guess there's sort of mixed feelings around AI. On the one hand, as I say, a profound positive impact, perhaps at the same sort of scale of these inventions, but at the same time, it's sort of not unequivocally good or bad. Where do you sit in terms of its impact on economies? and whether it's going to be a good thing ultimately or a bad thing.
I'm inclined to leave the moral judgment aside, but I'd like to talk about just the potential rate of adoption for these technologies, which is truly profound. And I think that is the source of both excitement and fear. And then I think as with any tools, we need to harness it correctly and in a productive manner. Let me share this next slide with you. Widespread adoption potential of generative AI. There's been a recent study conducted by Accenture using data from the US Department of Labor, US Bureau of Labor Statistics to analyze task by task what generative AI, how generative AI can impact our work essentially. The conclusion is that generative AI could impact 40% of all work hours through both automation and augmentation. Now, there are a lot of colors here. The most important colors to pay attention to are purple, which stand for high potential for automation, and green, which is high potential for augmentation, where the machine assists and magnify what human workers can do. And then you can see that the bars are ranked by how disruptive generative AI can potentially be for any specific job responsibility. On top, you see office administrative support, sales, computer science, finance, which has a really high potential. At the bottom, you see type of jobs that are more similar to, more connected to the physical world, farming, fishing, construction, and they have a slightly lower potential for automation, augmentation based on latest stage of generative AI development. But this is the promise. Have we gotten there? We've already seen sort of interesting cases of real life use cases. You're in a drive-through fast food chain, and the person talking to you is probably a chatbot these days. You want to modify your image, green lights can be added with just the phrase green, northern lights, and the task planning. So that's something to pay attention to as well. You're nodding your head. I see that you probably have used some of these features.
Yeah, well, I have some of the Adobe ones I particularly like as well, and I think a lot of our audience are probably very much focused on the use cases, but actually there's a lot more to the industry that sits behind that in terms of supplying the hardware and infrastructure that enables AI. Where are we in terms of the build out of that? And really, I guess one of the sort of key things we're here to discuss is where do the investment opportunities also lie within that?
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. There's a lot of demand for it, and then there's issue on what exactly is the kind of equipment infrastructure that we need to enable this potentially very powerful tool. Let's take a sort of a status quo check on where exactly do we stand given the huge promise of AI. This slide shows you the actual adoption rate of AI based on surveys of all US firms of all sizes. So that includes large firms, which may be a little bit more tech savvy, or smaller firms, which will sort of have to weigh more factors into consideration. As you can see here, overall, only 5% of US firms of all sizes have said they have used AI recently. However, the numbers are rising really, really fast. The lighter blue-green dot is from a few months ago, and then a few months later, it has already traveled to the right direction, to the dark blue dot. And you also notice that we've sort of broken this data down by industry. You see that some industry is truly leading, for example, information or professional services. The dot has really moved quite fast, and information is close to 20% already. Or some other industries, very similar to sort of what we saw in the earlier the potential chart. The industry that involve more physical work, more interaction with the physical world, they tend to have a lower adoption rate so far. So as you can see, really vary by sector, and it's happening really fast. And in fact, the ones that already have a relatively high adoption rate are accelerating it at even faster rate. So we really see this sort of very different approach across different industries. And because the absolute level of adoption rate is still relatively low, there is still a lot of potential for us to incorporate this technology a lot more.
Okay, and so I think you're sort of in your investment process, you've coined the term the AI stack for a way of thinking about how these different areas are sort of monetizing AI and where the opportunities lie. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and how you're thinking about this as an investor?
Sure. Well, actually, before I get to that, if you don't mind, I can talk about just a little bit about the AI systems, and it's the fact that it's getting bigger and bigger. I think that would have, be a very important sort of knowledge to bear in mind before we get into the AI stack. The charts here, each dot represent one AI system. And you can see the x-axis is over time. So the earliest one started in 1950s, and then the ones more recent. And you can see the dots really getting pretty crowded. That's because new models have come up. The y-axis is the number of parameters in notable AI systems. They're in log scale. And as you can see, a lot of dots are sort of congregating in the upper right corner, which means that we're having a lot more AI systems, and they're a lot bigger and a lot more compute intensive. And now it's time for us to sort of dive into the AI stack, because precisely, so many new AI systems and so much bigger and compute intensive is sort of happening at such rapid speed. The level of current adoption is still not that high, but then the potential is really, really big. I will start, the AI stack is sort of our framework for thinking about the AI investments, and then it sort of mimics the typical technology stack in, the actual application of this technological tool. I start with the easiest to sort of understand, which is the hardware layer. Semiconductor, we know that AI system use a lot more GPUs, a lot more memories, and that's essentially means higher silicon content. So that hardware layer is sort of a key. In fact, it's in supply constraint these days. People cannot get enough of the latest, most advanced chips. Above that is the cloud computing. So AI tend to, especially large-scale AI computations, tend to be conducted over the cloud, and large cloud computing capabilities tend to be held by a handful of big tech companies. So they stand there to sort of to incorporate and deliver these important technologies to many different users. And then foundational model, obviously, they run on cloud. They rely on the advanced semiconductor hardware to run. So the three layers in the middle is sort of what I call the close to home tech sector trades, because they are in, when you think about AI, you naturally think about, the implication for the technology sector. But the important thing is that the AI trade has been broadening from just a few narrow names. At the bottom, you see a layer called infrastructure. It's the physical infrastructure that enable AI to do its great things. It's important to because it exists in the cloud. It's so powerful. Sometimes we lose sight of the fact that AI does not exist in a vacuum. In fact, it's built in physical data center, plugged into physical electrical equipment, and plugged to the physical grid. And because AI is so compute intensive, its demand for power and electricity and smart grid is so high. And in a lot of DM countries or regions, the infrastructure investment has been so lagging. There's almost a huge imbalance in the supply of this physical infrastructure, which often takes the shape of electrical equipment, grid, capital goods, industrial goods. So that is sort of the a very important and frequently overlooked layer of this AI trade as well, which is so foundational to getting projects off the ground. So these bottom layers, we call them the picks and shovels of of building out this massive capital expenditure that's going into AI at this point. And there's a fair amount of certainty in that because everybody wants to get involved. The capabilities in general are supply constrained, which means that you have more visibility into the demand that's potentially to come. However, no technology exists without sort of the commercial application of it, and the top layer, which says application, are really the user scenario dependent applications of AI that solves real personal or business problems. And because initially we saw the three key features of generative AI: it's easy to use, it's multi-purpose, and it's being adopted very quickly. A lot of developments are happening on this front very, very quickly. Some of them could be coming from incumbent solutions, existing technical company or industries in general incorporating more AI into their workflow, or it could be completely new and disruptive and innovative business that's coming up with new solutions. So that's sort of, I think there's the most amount of innovation, uncertainty, excitement, but ultimately, the people may experiment, they may fail, but ultimately you have to have the commercial profitability on the top layers in order to feed into the ongoing investments into the hardware, the cloud computing, building bigger models, and expanding the physical infrastructure that support this. So it's really sort of come full cycle. We need to see a sort of an organic interaction amongst the different layers.
I think that's fascinating because I guess when I mention the headlines in the FT, it seems like they center around what you've called there the picks and shovels, the infrastructure, the NVIDIAs and the TSMCs of the world.
Certainly.
Every single stat that comes out seems to be incredible in terms of numbers. But what's interesting, I think, that often gets overlooked, that actually cut a lot of the spending on software as well has actually been quite significant and in fact has outpaced the hardware over the last few years. So, and to an extent, has that been overlooked? Because obviously we've seen this huge run up in the prices of some of the picks and shovel companies that you've mentioned.
Certainly. Well, the sort of the comparison or the contrast between hardware and software is something that we have been paying attention to, and then it helps to take a sort of a history, more historical lens down a longer sort of period of time. This chart on the left started from the 50s. In fact, as you see, for decades and decades, the capital expenditure for software and hardware, which is information processing equipment, have been rising together structurally. And then at some point, the hardware sort of expenditure started to sort of plateau and stabilize, even decline a little bit. But then the expenditure in software continued to rise. Now, what has happened? Initially, people were investing in, building bigger and more powerful hardware, and then software spending was also rising in conjunction. However, more recently, in the last, let's say, 2 decades, hardware has really become quite commoditized, and a lot of the tech innovation were driven by really smart computer programmers writing really smart code on in their sort of dorm room on a commoditized laptop, and that's why sort of we saw this shift of broader tech spending from hardware to software, because that is where sort of the edge was. Looking forward, this whole AI and machine learning revolution is a lot about having machines, really powerful machines, write their own code, whereas human will be giving not just programmers, but human workers, individuals from all walks of life, from all industry backgrounds, giving them instructions in a language that is most appropriate or most familiar to human beings, oftentimes natural language prompts, for them to get the machines directly to come up with solutions. Now, that is essentially a more democratized sort of utilization of really powerful machine. So potentially we see that this sort of this mix between software and hardware can potentially tilt towards more spending hardware as well. That has certainly been the case given how much you're reading about essentially NVIDIA and TSMCs of the world. I think it also serves to illustrate how granular and how sort of multifaceted AI can have impact on certain industry. Again, using software as an example, higher productivity boost from AI could lead to higher revenue, but it can also lead to so many different new solutions, new applications, innovative, disruptive ways of doing business, like the top layers that we just talked about in the AI stack. That maybe a prevailing software solution may not be that relevant anymore. So that could be a negative. But then, you can also have higher productivity of your internal staff. So it's really sort of quite uncertain, which way it's gonna go. So it's not all rosy for to say, okay, tech sector unanimously benefit from AI. And it's also not true that if you're not in tech, you're being left out. Certainly, we see a lot of companies, industries from non-tech sector truly embracing this new technology.
I think you've alluded to, I guess, the thing that comes up most when people express concern or fear over AI is, on the one hand, we talk about the benefits of productivity. On the other hand, does productivity come with higher unemployment?
Yeah.
And maybe we can just expand on that a little bit. Are there any history lessons that we can take for thinking about the future of AI and the impact on economies? And associated with that, what about the other sort of concerns and risks from an economic point of view? Anything else that you would point to?
Sure. Well, we have looked back into history into how historically technological innovation has been has impacted job market and unemployment, because this is certainly not the first time in human history where people are growing concerned, growing excited, but concerned, sometimes fearful of a new disruptive innovation to come. Now, the look back history for us here is roughly almost 300 years here. And during this past almost 300 years, we had Industrial Revolution, we had mass production, we had people sent to the moon, we had internet, phone, we had a lot of things, a lot of exciting things here. And what has happened to, if we study the long-term G7, the developed world unemployment rate, we see that things have truly not moved too much in response to the big technological changes there. In fact, the biggest spike in unemployment rate was single-handedly the Great Depression, which is an economic shock, not a technological shock. Even the GFC did not produce a slightly higher unemployment rate, but certainly nothing is really coming out sort of coinciding with the timing of a particular technology. Now, the intuitive way to understand this from a macroeconomic perspective is that your jobs evolve, jobs adapt. When we sign up for a new job, and we don't really have day-to-day predict visibility as to what we will do on a daily basis. Certainly, when I signed up for a job, I did not necessarily envision myself doing this, having this conversation with Stuart. So jobs itself are really flexible and adaptive. However, if you give a real economic shock to the broader environment, broader economy, then companies respond not by adjusting the nature of the job, but reducing the number of the job, cutting people off payroll. Now that is the economic shock, which is by far, at least historically, the key reason for massive unemployment rate. So I'd like to think that based on historical lesson, technological innovation shouldn't be a cause of mass unemployment. But every technology is different, every development is different. Certainly what's happening with generative AI is happening so fast, so we just gotta be really watchful.
And do you see any variation across industries or regions when you're looking at these types of trends?
So far, frankly, we don't really see the unemployment rate showing up anywhere at all. But we certainly see the employment, additional new jobs being created by this, showing up in a lot of places. So this is actually the growing demand for AI-related skills in labor market. We see that U.S. has certainly been leading the pack and has sort of created quite a distance from the other sort of developed world peers in terms of its private sector or companies' interest in hiring AI-related positions. And then we frequently read headlines about prompt engineers getting paid a pretty good amount. So another career to consider.
Possibly, yeah. And in fact, just going on to some of the thoughts around different regions, there's a big distinction between what we see happening in the US versus the development of AI in Asia, with many implications as well. How do you judge the development in this part of the world? We're both sat in Hong Kong, very close to China, is obviously a tech hub. How do you judge and compare the development and the impact across Asia and the US?
I mean, there's just really so many ways to, such a big problem, big question, and there's just so many ways to sort of slice and dice this issue. I suppose I'll take the lens of the science versus the application of it, which is very different. Certainly, currently, the most advanced chips are being designed in the United States. The biggest models, or at least the most popular big models, are U.S. originated. But certainly, we see other regions coming up with its own solution as well. China has its own solution. Europe, notably, quite a few French startups have come up with very valuable alternative solutions as well. So it's on the science front, that's already U.S. is still, I think, the main hub of it. But then there are sort of signs that other regions have their own dynamic solutions that may fit their needs better. There's also the application layer of it. I mean, right now there's so much excitement about, for example, ChatGPT, but frankly, it is just one way to use it. Different industries, different companies, countries are thinking about how do we deploy this massive tool. And the Chinese companies, frankly, have had a very good track record in terms of coming up with viable applications of technology. Certainly, the mobile era has seen, a lot of Chinese companies flourishing with, truly compelling solutions that utilize the mobile era technology. Can they be really good with the AI applications? I mean, the race is still the race is really still on, and it's still early stage. So we really are looking forward to seeing applications coming from all different regions, sectors.
Thank you, Taosha. We have had some questions submitted. And actually, it sort of relates a little bit to this. And you've talked a little bit around the risks related to economies and some of the potential downsides. But when it comes to investing, what are the sort of top things that you look at? I mean, we've talked a little bit about profitability, use cases, and establishing those. We've talked a little bit about the supply and dynamic, that providing the infrastructure, the ESG risks, dare I say geopolitics as well plays a part here. What sort of features at the top of the list for you in an investment perspective?
A lot of things, but maybe I'll highlight two things. Number one is just the earnings growth, the tremendous amount of earning growth, the tremendous amount of top line growth, the visibility of demand. This is something that moves not linearly, but moves exponentially. So because human brains are naturally sort of conditioned to think about things in a linear manner, and sometimes we just really have to sort of wrap our brain a little bit around the concept of how things can move really, really fast in a sort of in an exponential manner. And then it's important to pay attention to the actual earnings coming out of it, because earnings are moving really fast. Number two is the cyclicality of it, because so far a lot of AI, actions are still very much driven by investment. And investments, as we know, have a lot of cyclicality. If people are feeling, optimistic, animal spirit is high, then companies are flush with cash, they will do more of it. But if sentiment turns, things start to go down a little bit, then it can, shrink quite dramatically. And we have known from, long history of investing in, tech, hardware, semiconductor, that this is a growth cyclical. There is a typical expiration date to any expansionary period, expansionary phase in the cycle. There will come a down cycle at some point, and then it will rise back up. It makes higher highs and higher lows, but it's important to remember it does come in waves. So how do we, to what extent it has the new technology or the new development lengthen or change the shape or the nature of the cycle, which is so inherent to semiconductor and or hardware investment in general. That is something for us to be mindful of. Certainly at the back of mind, paying attention to new technology. Where are the disruptive solutions? Because sometimes it doesn't take another big corporate to take down a big corporate. It takes something new out of the box to get the people to rethink about the whole ecosystem. So that's what we pay attention to.
I remember a very experienced CIO said to me once that all markets move in cycles, but obviously some are more visible than others.
Yes.
What are the indicators that you're looking at, the market information that you're looking at to establish where we are in the cycle, and how visible is it to you, as an investor?
Inventory. The inventory is probably the most important indicator, again, typically for hardware and semiconductor. The planned expenditure of, tech companies is another one. And in addition to the sector-specific cycle as well, I think the macroeconomic cycle is really important as well, because again, no company, no person is an island. We all sort of move, with the broader macroeconomic cycle. So we pay a lot of attention to, for example, inflation, consumer confidence, that will ultimately find its way into, corporate earnings and corporate appetite for spending. In the near term, we continue to see, for example, U.S. economy being really resilient, and then the appetite to spend remains relatively high, and the capital market is behaving still in a broadly constructive manner. So all of those would help to sort of lengthen and prolong the cycle a little bit, but the next change can always be around the corner. So we've got to stay vigilant.
Yeah. And another question that's come in that's somewhat linked as well, in terms of consumption and consumption behavior. We're aware of a few of we alluded to them earlier in terms of some of the applications and how they're driving the development of new ways of using the technology. And I guess at the end of the day, selling product and produce and services to the end consumers. How do you see AI having the largest impact on consumption within economies?
I would say I think it will certainly help. I think from two aspects of it. Number one is from the experience of it. I mean, a lot of us have already experienced, how AI can make great shopping recommendations, how AI can improve our shopping experience, consumption experience in general, or enhance our customer journey. So that, I think, generally, we probably see more of that. But another aspect of it is just the appetite to spend, or how much money do we have to spend. If we believe that by and large, at least on a collective basis, AI is a powerful productivity tool, and that it will, by and large, create more wealth for the society in general. And if we also then make the big assumption that individuals continue to receive a reasonably fair share of that overall enlarged pie, and then they continue to benefit from maybe certain wealth factors, such as the higher, possibly higher equity prices, possibly property, or the wealth effect in general, then maybe from just being more productive at work. Some people talk about shortening the working hours so people have a better work-life balance. That would enable people to essentially have more resources, meaning both money and time, to essentially explore a possibly enhanced consumer experience. So I think the direction of travel should be positive, but I wouldn't be surprised there are a few bumps on the road.
And one way that we sort of see services enhanced and processes enhanced using this type of technology is with our own industry, asset management and investing.
Absolutely.
And I love this question has come in. How will AI impact investing and the way that you do your job?
Sure. I mean, so many ways. I mean, Bloomberg, which a lot of, as professional investors use, have already incorporated a lot of very handy AI features, and I'm learning and using them on almost a daily basis. So I mean, I think just shows how even what's considered a traditional industry in finance, we are really incorporating this new technology as well. Some of the analysts, they have used generative AI to either come up with a summary, come up with an interesting title, come up with illustration for their report. And if you have a compelling report, they have good ideas, and they come up with eye-catching image attached to it, then the chance of putting that good trade or get that report getting read is higher. Putting that profitable trade in the portfolio is higher, and then outcome is better. I know Fidelity actually recently, we had this incident where analysts used the AI to conduct ESG analysis and then facilitate really positive change, not just in pure financial outcome per se, but also in the sustainability outcome. It's called collecting bioacoustic. So what happened is that in order to analyze the biodiversity in the forest, it's really difficult because you have to gather so many data points about so many different species, and it's never as exhaustive as you want. And what happened is that the analysts, together with a partner with some other asset managers, they went into the forest, engaged the help of scientists, and they recorded the sound of the forest. And because the forest is free from all the modern sounds that we have in the city, you can really actually, by analyzing the sound, you can figure out what species are there and how active they are, and what's the level of diversity in that particular forest compared to, say, like a plantation. And there, and then you use obviously a lot of AI to collect the data, to analyze that data, to make, to filter through, what is relevant, what is not. So I think it's really fascinating that you can incorporate this, again, powerful general purpose tool to facilitate so many goals in asset management.
I love the fact that the passion for AI is coming through in what you're investing in, and also the way that you do it as well in terms of the job. And it also comes through in the book that you've written as well. So Techonomics, you should know, life-changing economics of disruptive technologies, I believe, is the full title. Did you have fun writing that?
Oh, yes, sometimes, but there are painful days as well.
Combining it with a full-time job.
Yes.
Just before we go, is there any sort of final concluding remarks you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, we've come up with this sort of summary page that's really meant to be a simple summary for what we discussed today. The most important thing I want people to take away is that, number one, this is still in early innings. There's so much that can happen, potentially from where we stand today. The key features is that Gen AI is easy to use, multi-purpose, and has witnessed unprecedented rapid adoption. The potential is very high, and then we are still just getting started. In terms of investment theme, there's so much more to AI than just a narrow set of tech names. In fact, we are finding compelling opportunities throughout the entire AI stack, if I were to quote myself again, not just the close to home tech trade, but also the supporting physical infrastructure and the nearly endless application of these powerful technologies in a wide set of industries.
That's brilliant. Taosha, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you for your presentation. I think it's been fascinating. We've obviously covered a lot of ground. We've explored the revolutionary impact on the tech sector, but also the impact on economies. It's clear, as Taosha said, that we have a new investment theme established a new way of thinking about that through the AI stack that goes from the infrastructure to the applications. But it's clear that there's clearly going to be winners and losers within that. So I think the key is really to identify the enduring effect of AI and where those sort of profit pools really exist, and tapping into those as an investor. And if you'd like to know how Fidelity can help you with that, then please do reach out to your nearest financial advisor or a Fidelity representative. But for now, thank you very much. Thank you, Taosha.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Stuart.
everyone, for joining.
Thank you.